Too much for the world, but perfect for his heart. The county auction grounds buzzed with life that evening. Horses stamped nervously, cattle bellowed, and men barked bids over the hum of cicadas. The smell of dust and fried pies hung in the warm Texas air. But for Ella Grace, none of it felt alive. It felt like the end of the world. At 19, Ella had grown used to whispers trailing behind her. Too big. Too heavy. Not pretty. The words clung to her like burrs on cotton, and she carried them with her every step. Dresses didn't fit, boys didn't look her way, and even family dinners felt like a quiet court where she was judged for simply existing. Her parents had passed when she was little, leaving her to the care of her Aunt May. May was not unkind in the way fists are cruel, but in the way sharp words slice deeper than knives. "You'll never marry," May often said, sighing at Ella's sighs. "No man wants more burden than he already has." Ella thought she was coming to the auction to help sell cattle. She didn't know her aunt had other plans, plans that would tear her heart apart. That afternoon, Ella overheard the truth as May whispered to a neighbor. "She's strong enough to haul wood, milk cows, mend fences. If I can sell her off to a farm, at least I won't have to feed her anymore." Ella's blood turned to ice. Sell her? Like a mule? Like she was nothing more than muscle and weight? Tears burned behind her eyes, but she bit them back. She had learned long ago that crying only gave people another reason to call her weak. When her name was called, laughter rippled through the crowd. "Built like an ox. She'll eat more than she earns. Better hope she don't break the wagon." Every comment was a lash across her spirit. Ella kept her eyes on the dirt, wishing she could sink into it and disappear. And then, boots. Slow. Heavy. Confident. The sound cut through the jeers like thunder rolling over the plains. He was taller than most, broad shoulders framed by a worn leather jacket, hat pulled low. His name was Daniel Hayes, a cowboy with lines of grief etched deep into his face. He'd lost his wife 3 winters ago, and though he carried himself steady, his heart had been aching in silence. He hadn't come looking for company. He hadn't come to find love again. He came for cattle. But when his eyes landed on Ella Grace, everything changed. He saw the slump of her shoulders, the tremble in her hands, the loneliness in her gaze. And in that moment, he recognized something he knew too well, what it felt like to be unwanted. "How much?" Daniel's voice rang out. The auctioneer blinked. "For her." Her aunt snorted. "You don't want her, Hayes. She's too big." "I'll decide what she is," Daniel interrupted, his tone even but firm. The crowd fell silent. Daniel stepped forward, his eyes never leaving Ella's. And then he tipped his hat, lowering his voice so only she could truly feel the weight of his words. "She's not too much. She's exactly what I've been needing." Ella's breath caught. No one, had ever spoken of her like that. Daniel laid down the money without hesitation. But before taking her hand, he leaned closer and whispered, "You're not too big for me. You're just right for my heart." The ground seemed to steady beneath her feet. For the first time, Ella felt chosen, not tolerated, not measured, but wanted. Life on the ranch. Daniel's ranch lay 20 miles from town, a stretch of rolling land kissed by the wind. The house was simple, a wooden porch, 2 bedrooms, and a barn filled with hay. It wasn't much, but it was honest, and Ella felt more at home in those first days than she had in years. At first, she was nervous. She moved carefully, afraid to take up space, afraid he would see her the way others had. But Daniel never once looked at her with judgment. When she lifted heavy buckets of water, he grinned. Strong as any ranch hand. When she cooked biscuits, he said, "Best I've had since Ma passed." When she laughed, he leaned back like the sound itself healed something broken inside him. Still, old wounds don't fade overnight. One evening, Ella sat alone on the porch, tears running quietly down her cheeks. The stars above felt endless, but inside she felt small. Daniel found her there. "Darlin', why the tears?" "I don't understand," she whispered. "Why do you look at me and not see what everyone else sees?" "Too much. Too heavy." Daniel knelt beside her, rough hands wrapping around hers. His voice cracked with truth. "Because I know what too little feels like. Too little love. Too little laughter. Too little life. I don't need less, Ella. I need more. And that's what you are, more heart, more strength, more everything I prayed for." Ella wept into his chest that night, not out of sorrow, but release. The twist of fate. Life was not without trials. That winter, a storm hit hard. The barn roof caved, cattle scattered, and neighbors shook their heads. Hayes can't keep that ranch going. Not with just him and that girl. But Ella refused to let the land slip away. She rose before dawn, braved the biting cold, and worked beside Daniel to rebuild what was broken. When he faltered, she steadied him. When doubt whispered, she answered with strength. And slowly, the ranch thrived. Not because of luck or wealth, but because of the partnership between a man who believed again and a woman who finally believed in herself. One spring evening, as bluebonnets carpeted the fields, Daniel took Ella's hand and placed a small ring, simple silver, nothing fancy, on her finger. "I thought I'd never love again," he said softly. "But God sent me you. Will you stay, not as a burden, not as a worker, but as my wife?" Ella's tears spilled freely, but this time, they were tears of joy. "Yes," she whispered. 1,000 times yes. A new beginning. Years later, the ranch would be known as Hayes Homestead, a place of warmth and generosity. Travelers would stop for supper, and neighbors would say, "That Ella Grace, she's the heart of that land." And sometimes, when the stars stretched wide and endless above them, Ella would remember the auction, the cruel laughter, the voices that said she was too much. But she no longer carried their words. Because one cowboy had walked into her life, silenced every lie, and whispered a truth she would carry forever. "You were never too much for the world. You were just perfect for my heart."